It is a tragedy. Hannah is too unstable to appreciate a home like this. But at least we are here to protect it. My mother's voice came through my phone perfectly clear, streamed live from the living room security camera I was watching. I sat in my freezing car, parked 50 feet away in the dark, watching them toast with my vintage Cabernet. They thought I was locked in a psych ward. They didn't know I was holding the digital admin keys to the entire property. Protection detail is over, Mom, I whispered. I tapped system reset. Instantly, the entire lodge went black. Inside the lodge, the lights died instantly. It wasn't a flicker, it was a total blackout. The warm, inviting glow of the chandelier vanished, plunging the great room into gray shadows. On my phone screen, the live feed from the bookshelf camera switched to infrared mode. I saw my father, Josiah, stand up, knocking his wine glass over. The dark liquid spread across the table like ink, but nobody moved to clean it up. They were too busy staring at their phones. My sister Ashley is an influencer. She lives her entire life on a screen, but she never bothered to change the default recovery email on the smart home hub. It took one click to reclaim it. I didn't just kill the connection. I reset the router to a hidden network I bad configured days ago. Inside, their screens went dead. No signal. No internet. But here in my car, my dashboard remained perfectly lit, streaming every second of their panic in high definition. I dragged my thumb across the second command. Security lockdown. Even through the thick glass, I imagined the heavy mechanical thud of the deadbolts sliding home. Front door, back door, garage entry, locked. Then, the climate control. I scrolled the digital wheel down. 70 degrees. 60. 50. Outside, the aspen wind was howling at 10 below zero. Inside, the furnace hummed once and shut down. The silence in that house must have been deafening. Watching my mother, Catherine, wrap her cashmere shawl tighter around her shoulders, brought the memory back so hard I could taste the bile. It was last Christmas. I had walked into the mudroom quietly, shaking snow off my boots, when I heard her voice drifting from the kitchen. She was holding court with Aunt Martha, speaking in that hushed, tragic tone she perfected years ago. "We have to keep the deed in our name, Martha," she had said. "Hannah is fragile. You know how she gets. If we let her control an asset like this, she would sell it for drugs in a week. We are doing this to protect her from herself." I had stood there, frozen, my hand on the doorknob. Drugs. I have never touched a drug in my life. I have a federal clearance for my job. I spend my days auditing complex insurance fraud, but the truth didn't matter to them. They needed a story. They needed a villain so they could play the heroes. They murdered my reputation to justify stealing my property. They turned me into a junky ghost story, just so they could feel righteous about living in my lake house. That memory burned hotter than the heater I had just killed. On the screen, I saw Ashley holding her phone up to the window, desperately trying to find a bar of service. It was useless. The lodge was built with thick stone and reinforced glass. Without the Wi-Fi bridge, it was a Faraday cage. They were trapped in the dark, in the cold, with no audience left to perform for. I adjusted my seat warmer and took a sip of coffee. They wanted to protect the house from me? Fine. Now they were locked inside it. And I was just getting started. Inside the lodge, the panic was starting to find a rhythm. I watched on the infrared feed as my father, Josiah, slammed his hand against the wall panel for the thermostat. Nothing happened. My sister, Ashley, was holding her phone high in the air, walking in circles like she was trying to catch a satellite signal with a butterfly net. They looked confused, annoyed, maybe a little scared, but they didn't look guilty. Not yet. They made a critical error when they targeted me. They forgot what I do for a living. I am a senior fraud investigator. I don't just look at spreadsheets, I look at behavior. I track the microscopic tremors in a financial timeline that scream theft. When I finally turned that lens on my own life, the picture was crystal clear. I opened the file on my passenger seat just to remind myself. It was heavy. $45,000 in credit card debt. Opened in my name. Signed with a forgery, so lazy it was insulting. That was Josiah. He needed bridge loans for businesses that never existed. Then there were the withdrawals. $12,000. Every single month. Siphoned from the trust my grandmother left me. My mother, Catherine, labeled them management fees. She was managing my money right into her closet. For years, I let it happen. I told myself it was normal to help family. I told myself I was being generous. But I wasn't being generous. I was being slowly boiled alive. People always ask, "Why didn't you leave sooner?" It is the frog in the boiling water. You don't notice the heat rising until your skin is already peeling. For me, the water boiled 2 years ago. I was driving home in the rain, exhausted from a double shift. I hydroplaned. The car flipped. I woke up in the emergency room with a concussion, and a shattered collarbone. The pain was blinding, white and sharp, but the conversation with the billing nurse hurt worse. "I am sorry, Hannah," she had said, looking at her clipboard. "Your health insurance was canceled last month for non-payment." I lay there, strapped to a board, trying to process it. I sent my parents the premium money every month. I had never missed a transfer. It wasn't until weeks later that I found the bank trail. They had diverted the insurance money to a dealership deposit. Ashley wanted a new Range Rover for her brand image, and my safety was the down payment. But that wasn't the moment I broke. The moment I broke was 10 minutes later in that hospital bed. My phone buzzed on the plastic tray table. I reached for it, my vision swimming, expecting a message from my mother asking if I was alive. It was a text from Josiah. "What is the code for the wall safe again?" The battery died. "No, are you okay?" "No, we are coming. Just a demand for access." I stared at those gray bubbles on the screen until the tears stopped coming. I realized then that I wasn't their daughter. I was a resource. I was a host, and they were the parasites, and they would feed until there was nothing left of me but a husk. I looked up from the file in my lap. On the screen, Josiah was pacing. He was wearing his expensive coat, the one he bought with my credit line. He looked angry. Good. He should be. I had spent 2 years planning this night, documenting every theft, every lie, every forged signature. I wasn't the daughter who lay in that hospital bed anymore. I was the bill collector. And tonight, the debt was due. On the screen, the temperature readout dropped another degree. 48. Inside the lodge, the movement changed. It wasn't just panic anymore. It was the frantic, jerky motion of trapped animals. They tried the front door first. I saw the latch turn. Saw them push out into the snow. But they didn't get far. The driveway is a 1/4 mile long, steep, and iced over. At the bottom stands a 12-foot electric gate. I disabled the gate motor 5 minutes ago. They were sealed in. Josiah stomped back into the living room, snow clinging to his Italian loafers. He was shouting. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew the cadence. It was the same way he shouted at waiters, at valets, at me. The shout of a man who believes the world exists to serve him and is currently malfunctioning. He pointed at the thermostat. He pointed at the router. Then he turned his eyes to the massive sliding glass door that led to the patio. "Don't do it," I whispered, gripping the steering wheel. "Be exactly who I think you are." He marched to the fireplace. He bypassed the poker and grabbed a piece of birch firewood, thick as a thigh. My mother, Catherine, grabbed his arm. He shoved her off. This is the thing about bullies. They don't know how to fix things, they only know how to break them. When they lose control, they don't de-escalate. They explode. Josiah swung the log. Crack. The sound didn't reach me, but the spiderweb fracture on the infrared feed was beautiful. The safety glass held for a second, a testament to the money I spent building that place. But Josiah swung again, and again. On the third strike, the barrier gave way. Shards of reinforced glass rained down onto the hardwood floor. A gust of sub-zero wind rushed into the living room, blowing the curtains wild. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Up until that second, this was a civil dispute. It was a messy family squabble over residency and keys. The police hate civil disputes. They tell you to call a lawyer and walk away. But the moment that glass shattered, the math changed. Josiah wasn't a resident locked out of his home. He was an intruder forcibly entering a property he didn't own. He had just committed vandalism and breaking and entering. Ashley scrambled through the broken door, phone in hand. She must have caught a rogue signal near the window or used the emergency-only dialer. I watched her pacing the deck, screaming into the device, her free hand waving frantically at the dark tree line. "Yes! We are trapped!" I imagined her screaming. "Someone hacked the house. They are holding us hostage. Send everyone." She thought she was saving herself. She thought she was the hero of her own survival movie. She had no idea she was the star witness for the prosecution. She was inviting the police right into the trap I had set. And she was doing it with a felony record of the call. I started the engine. The heater kicked on, blowing warmth over my frozen fingers. It was time to go meet the guests. The blue lights cut through the aspen darkness like a strobe light. 2 patrol SUVs crunched up the icy driveway, their tires slipping on the grade I hadn't salted. Inside the lodge, the relief was immediate and pathetic. The moment the sirens stopped, my mother, Catherine, ran out the front door, the one that was still locked, forcing her to scramble through the shattered patio glass like a burglar. She waved her arms at the officers, wrapping her shawl tight, playing the damsel in distress role she had perfected over 30 years of marriage. "Thank God," she screamed, rushing toward the lead deputy. "We are under attack. Someone hacked the system. They locked us out in the cold." Josiah followed her, trying to look authoritative despite the snow soaking his socks. Officer, I want a full report filed. This is cyber terrorism. We have been held hostage in our own home. I picked up the black binder from the passenger seat. It weighed 4 pounds. It felt like a brick. I opened my car door and stepped out into the wind. The cold hit me instantly, biting through my coat. But I didn't shiver. I walked down the driveway, my boots crunching loud enough to make the deputy turn his head. Ma'am. Stay back, the officer shouted, hand resting near his belt. We have a disturbance call. I know, I said, my voice cutting through the wind. I am the one who locked the doors. Catherine froze. Her head snapped toward me. For a second, she looked like she was seeing a ghost. Then her face twisted into that familiar mask of pity and condescension. Hannah? She turned to the officer, lowering her voice to a stage whisper. Officer, this is my daughter. She is having an episode. We have been trying to get her help. She must have done this. Please, be gentle with her. The officer relaxed, his shoulders dropping. He let out a sigh that puffed white in the air. Okay, folks. Let's calm down. This sounds like a civil dispute. If you have keys, let's just... It is not a civil dispute, I said. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I walked right past my mother and handed the binder to the officer. He frowned, looking down at the first page. It was a certified, notarized copy of the warranty deed. My name is Hannah Cross, I said. I am the sole owner of this property. These people are not tenants. They are not guests. I revoked their access 3 hours ago. The officer flipped the page. He saw the time-stamped log of the admin reset. He saw the copy of the text message I sent Josiah a week ago. Do not enter my property again. Officer, look at the patio. I pointed to the jagged hole in the glass where the heat was escaping. That man just smashed a reinforced window to force entry into a home he does not own. That isn't a family squabble. That is breaking and entering. Josiah stepped forward, his face purple. Now listen here. I paid for this house. I put it in her name for tax purposes. She is mentally unstable. Tax purposes? The officer looked up from the binder. His eyes were different now. The boredom was gone, replaced by the cold calculation of law enforcement assessing a suspect. Sir, do you have any proof of ownership? A deed? A utility bill in your name? I have a lease! Josiah sputtered, patting his pockets frantically. We signed a lease 3 years ago. It is in my safe. A lease, I repeated. I looked at the officer. Ask him to show it to you. Then turned to tab 3. The trap had just snapped shut. The officer took the document Josiah pulled from his briefcase, a crisp, pristine lease agreement dated 3 years ago. It looked official. It had signatures. It had a notary stamp. To the untrained eye, it was a get-out-of-jail-free card. See? Josiah smirked, his confidence returning like a bad habit. We have a valid lease. This is a civil matter. Tell her to unlock the door before I sue her for illegal eviction. I didn't argue. I didn't interrupt. I just watched the officer read it. He looked up, wavering. This was the moment the system usually fails victims. A piece of paper, even a fake one, creates reasonable doubt, and the police walk away. Officer, I said, my voice flat. Please look at the bottom right corner of that page. Do you see the faint yellow dots? The officer squinted. What? Machine identification code, I said. Every color laser printer leaves a microscopic tracking pattern. It tells you the serial number of the printer and the exact time the document was created. I opened the binder to tab 3, the lease Josiah claimed proved ownership. The same one he had emailed his lawyer yesterday. Beside it sat the forensic report I'd ordered overnight. That lease wasn't printed 3 years ago, I said. The yellow dot metadata shows it was printed yesterday morning at 10:42. On the HP LaserJet in my father's home office. Josiah went pale. It's a reprint, he blurted. We lost the original. A file created yesterday, I asked. And the ink is fresh. If it's 3 years old, why didn't it exist until 24 hours ago? The officer's expression hardened. Sir, he said, stepping closer. Do you have any other proof of residency? It's inside, Josiah shouted. There's more, I said, turning to tab 4. My sister Ashley says she lives here. Right? I do, she screamed. Yes, while collecting state rental assistance. I handed over the documents. For 18 months she claimed to be a low-income tenant paying rent to a landlord who doesn't exist. $24,000 in fraud. The officer compared the forms to the lease. You can't be a homeowner and a subsidized renter, I said, looking at my father. So, either the lease is fake, or your daughter committed wire fraud. Which is it? There was no escape. Dispatch, the officer said into his radio. I need a supervisor. Possible forgery and fraud. He cuffed Josiah. Ashley didn't cry. She watched, panicked, then lunged for my coat. "She has drugs," she screamed. "Search her." The officer pulled a small bag of white powder from the pocket. My family relaxed. They thought they'd won. I pulled out my phone. "There's a camera in that planter," I said. "Here's the live feed." On screen, Ashley reached into her bra, stuffed the bag into my coat, then turned to scream. The officer watched twice. "You're under arrest," he said, snapping cuffs onto her wrists. Catherine stood frozen, as both her husband and daughter were led to separate cars. "Get off my driveway," I told her. The tow truck arrived next. Josiah's tags were expired. The Lexus was hauled away, leaving her stranded in the snow. I walked inside, boarded up the shattered door, poured myself a glass of wine, and opened the folder labeled Case 894. Family. 3 years of evidence. I dragged it to the trash. The house finally felt quiet. Cold. Clean. I took a sip. Freedom tasted sharp and perfect.